The U.S. okays Ukraine firing American missiles into Russia. The trans bathroom battle makes it to Capitol Hill. And why are more and more people getting their news from social media, aside from memes being more credible than the mainstream media? Then more on this week's America Uncovered headlines. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. President-elect Donald Trump wants to nominate TV personality Dr. Oz to oversee Medicare and Medicaid. This is a curious pick. Many people don't quite understand it. I mean, who's ever heard of a TV personality suddenly getting an important government role with literally no experience in politics whatsoever? Trump also chose Florida Senator Marco Rubio as his Secretary of State. Should he be confirmed, this will leave an empty seat in the Senate. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says he will decide who will fill the Senate seat by early January. Some Trump allies are pushing for him to appoint Trump's daughter-in-law, RNC co-chair Lara Trump, to the position. DeSantis hasn't made his decision yet, but said his senator pick must have a proven record of results. Should DeSantis choose Lara Trump, some might argue this is clearly an act of nepotism. To which I say, so? Sure, nepotism can be a bad thing, but only when the person is unqualified. There are countless examples of talented, hardworking people that just so happen to have benefited by having the right connections. I'm a perfect example. I'm only the host of America Uncovered because I was hired by my twin brother, China Uncensored's Chris Chappell. And he also hired our twin brothers, Chris Chappell and Chris Chappell, to host Gamers Unbeaten and China Unscripted, and they've been doing a terrific job. I come from an insanely talented family. I'm proud of my twin brothers, Chris, and Chris. And Dave Chappell. The extra E and different pronunciation in his last name is just his stage name. But going back to Trump, welcome to the next 4 years of my life. His Attorney General pick, former Representative Matt Gaetz, has withdrawn his bid for the position. Gaetz was under investigation by the House Ethics Committee for alleged sexual misconduct, including with a woman who was 17 at the time, and illicit drug use. His nomination and subsequent decision to resign from Congress pulled the investigation into the spotlight, which is probably one of the best examples of the Streisand effect I've ever seen. Democrats on Capitol Hill have been calling for the release of Gaetz' ethics report and have said they will continue to do so despite Gaetz' withdrawal. And even some Republicans are pushing for the release, prompting Marjorie Taylor Greene to threaten to put it all out there for the American people to see. Marjorie Taylor Greene burning it all to the ground. Several Republicans also said they would absolutely not confirm Gaetz, raising doubts about the Senate vote. Meanwhile, according to one source, an unknown and unauthorized third party has gained access to Matt Gaetz' depositions. So it might just be a matter of time before either the depositions are leaked or the report is released by the House Ethics Committee, or Marjorie Taylor Greene goes AWOL, as usual. With all this going on, Gaetz wrote on X, "It is clear that my confirmation was unfairly becoming a distraction to the critical work of the Trump-Vance transition," which is a surprisingly honest and humble response coming from Gaetz. The question still remains, can Gaetz unresign from Congress now that he's no longer in the running for Attorney General? The answer? Technically, he hasn't actually resigned, because you can't resign from a session of Congress that hasn't started yet. He's just noted his intent not to take the oath, so maybe, I guess we'll see. In the wake of Gaetz' withdrawal, Trump has chosen longtime ally Pam Bondi as his new Attorney General pick. You know, for a party that's been accused of hating women, there are sure a lot of women in Trump's cabinet. President Biden, I know, crazy, I forgot he's still president, authorized Ukraine to fire long-range US-made weapons into Russia. He also agreed to give the country anti-personnel mines. The long-range missiles are primarily meant to be used in the southern Russian city of Kursk, where 50,000 Russian troops have been amassed after a counteroffensive from Kiev and Ukraine. Ukraine firing missiles on Russian soil would be an escalation of the war. Biden's decision angered many Trump allies, who accused him of risking World War III just before leaving office, which would be terrifying if we didn't also just hear about how escalating tensions between Israel and Iran could also kick off World War III last month. And World War III has been trending every other day online for the past 11 years. With all this never-ending anticipation and anxiety, I feel like when World War III eventually does kick off, my first thought is going to be, finally. Ukraine quickly took advantage of their new authorization and fired the first US-made missiles into Russia. The Kremlin warned the US they were escalating tensions even higher. And Russian President Vladimir Putin signed an update to Russia's nuclear doctrine that lowered the threshold for the nation to launch a nuclear strike. Putin threatening a nuclear strike. Again, this is something that would be terrifying if it wasn't something we've seen from him time and time again. If he were a pro wrestler, this would be his signature catchphrase. And his finishing move would, of course, be his opponents mysteriously falling out of windows. Wouldn't make for the most exciting matches, honestly. So did Biden just kick off World War III as a metaphoric walking away from the explosion without looking back at it right before he leaves office? Is that why he was so happy when he saw Trump? He knew the mess he was about to unleash on him? Oh, you apocalyptic trickster! For what it's worth, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky believes the war will end faster under a Trump presidency. He explains, this is their approach, their promise to their society, and it's also very important to them. We must do everything to ensure that the war ends next year through diplomatic means. Word to the wise, when it comes time to negotiate peace with Putin, maybe do it on the ground floor, preferably not near any windows. And how does Putin feel about Trump saying he would end the war? Russia's state-run news congratulated Trump's wife, Melania Trump, on her husband's election win and displayed nude pictures of the future First Lady from GQ magazine in 2000. Nice! Because I've been wondering for years how to get young people more interested in foreign policy. The answer is boobs. Look, I don't know if World War III is about to pop off, but this feels more like the start of a meme war. And when it comes to political leaders and memes, Trump has more experience than anyone. And after the break, a battle over trans bathroom use in Congress. Welcome back. Delaware State Senator Sarah McBride won her House race, making her the first open transgender person elected to Congress. I say open because considering the Founding Fathers' love for wigs and complicated undergarments, there could have easily been a closeted founding mother in the bunch. In response to this, South Carolina Representative Nancy Mace introduced a resolution to amend the House's rules to ban transgendered women from using women's bathrooms at the Capitol. House Speaker Mike Johnson was asked at a press conference if he believes McBride is a man or a woman. He initially said he wouldn't get into it and would treat all persons with dignity and respect. But he later clarified he believes a man cannot become a woman. How dare he sidestep the question? It's not like he and the rest of Congress have the economy, the border crisis, or maybe not World War III to contend with. This is clearly the biggest issue facing politicians. Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene didn't sidestep the question, saying McBride is a man who wouldn't be welcome in women's bathrooms.
It's pretty aggressive for biological men to be invading our spaces. We're women. Why do we have men coming in our spaces? Do you want to see this? So if he is aggressively coming in our bathrooms, then we should be able to defend ourselves.
Great. As if using a public bathroom wasn't anxiety-inducing enough, now there's all this controversy to contend with. Speaker Johnson ultimately announced a ban on transgendered women using women's bathrooms in the Capitol, but clarified all single-sex facilities in the Capitol and House office buildings, such as restrooms, changing rooms, and locker rooms, are reserved for individuals of that biological sex. It's important to note that each member office has its own private restroom, and unisex restrooms are available throughout the Capitol. Thanks to this story, I've never been more aware of elected officials' pooping habits. What a terrible day to understand English. McBride responded to this resolution proposal saying this is a blatant attempt from far-right-wing extremists to distract from the fact that they have no real solutions to what Americans are facing. Personally, I think this whole situation is ridiculous, mostly because I believe that every member of Congress should be banned from every bathroom, considering how often they take breaks. The rare days Congress is actually at work, they shouldn't be allowed to take even more breaks. How will they relieve themselves, you ask? They can just pee in Gatorade bottles like Amazon drivers. If it's good enough for an Amazon driver, it's good enough for Congress. Speaking of Amazons, President Biden, I know I just mentioned this like 6 minutes ago, but even since then I forgot he's still president. Biden became the first president in U.S. history to visit the Amazon rainforest. This marks not only the first time an American president visited the Amazon, But it's the first time in forever that an American went to the Amazon instead of having an Amazon come to them. Biden stopped in the Amazon on his way to the G20 summit in Brazil and asserted that despite Trump's vows to roll back his clean energy incentives, nobody could reverse what he's done. He then just wandered off into the rainforest. You do you, man. We'll see if Trump can actually roll back the initiatives Biden put in place. Personally, I don't think he'll be able to. Consider his authorization of Ukraine to use US-made missiles in Russia. Nothing combats global warming quite like a World War III nuclear winter. Speaking of things getting absolutely destroyed, the mainstream media. According to a report from the Pew Research Center, about 20% of Americans, evenly split between Democrats and Republicans, are getting their news from influencers on social media platforms as opposed to traditional media companies. As someone reporting the news on a social media platform, I'd like to be the first to congratulate you on your fine taste. I've reported several times on how Americans' trust in the mainstream media is free-falling, and it looks like more and more people are abandoning ship as legacy media fades into the long night like Biden fades into the Amazon rainforest. This is the closest thing to a real-life Homer fading into the hedges gif. However, not everyone is willing to let traditional news outlets go without a fight. Former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki blames disinformation on social media as a core issue behind Kamala Harris's presidential defeat and called for laws to change to stop disinformation online.
One of the things that's changed even since I got involved in politics is just the rise of the percentage of people who get their information off of platforms that have no fact-checking mechanism and no accountability for having disinformation spread.
She says social media platforms have no fact-checking mechanisms. Does she have any idea how many fact checks have appeared below my videos here on YouTube? And if you say that there's no fact-checking on X, a community note will pop up saying, "Am I a joke to you?" Disregarding the argument of who gets to decide what is and isn't mis- and disinformation, especially with the number of stories labeled as such that turned out to be true, I can understand Psaki's concern. As a former White House press secretary, she was a pipeline to mainstream media outlets. So she's always been super careful to be always factually accurate. Except all the time she wasn't, like in her book when she claimed Biden didn't look at his watch during a ceremony honoring soldiers killed during the U.S.'s withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021. Even Snopes backs up this claim. Well, I guess books aren't held to a very high standard either. Does she want to do something about books that contain information she deems harmful? Maybe Biden is already doing something about that as well. After all, there's no better way to have a book burning than World War III. And before YouTube kicks you to some random video, check out the latest episode of my other twin brother Chris Chappell's show, Deep Thoughts While Gaming, about Age of Empires 2 and how to build a perfect civilization. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.